Welcome to an hour of HealthMade Radio. HealthMade is a community for natural health seekers where we educate people about common health conditions and share extensive research on the most effective natural health treatments and promote legislation that protects our health freedoms. A core concept belief is in the innate intelligence and healing power of the body, and if properly supported spiritually, emotionally, and nutritionally, it can find its way back to health. HealthMade Radio will bring information from integrative health experts throughout the world. Check us out at healthmade.co. Health is what you make it. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt, and I will be your host. Today's guest is DEBORA WAYNE. DEBORA WAYNE, founder and director of the Biofield Healing Institute, is an internationally known energy healer and pain release specialist whose expertise is helping men and women to rapidly find and remove the hidden causes for chronic pain, chronic fatigue, depression, and anxiety, traumas, struggles with food, weight, binge eating, and more. Since recovering from her own health hell over 30 years ago, DEBORA has been immersed both personally and professionally in the healing arts. She has personally helped tens of thousands of people in 150 countries to release their pain, recharge their energy, and get their lives back on track. DEBORA is the #1 best-selling author of Why Do I Still Hurt? Rapid Relief from Chronic Pain, Depression, Anxiety, and more. She has earned degrees and certifications in psychology, hypnotherapy, chemical dependency counseling, has 30-plus years practicing and teaching the art of meditation, is a nationally recognized fine artist, a former professional modern dancer, a certified yoga instructor, Reiki master, founder of the Biofield Healing Immersion Method, and director of the Biofield Healing Institute. DEBORA, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be here.
Well, I can see you have quite an extensive background. I'm curious, how did all these pieces come together to create what you do now?
Yes, I never expected it to all come together. People would say, what is she doing now? Yeah. But, as I look back in hindsight, ever since I was 4 years old and began those first lessons to become a dancer, I see how predominantly the activities, the hobbies, and the education that I've had took me on an inner journey, helped me get very comfortable and aware of an intuition, a sense of energy, and lots of information that we can tap into when we get quiet and take our focus away from the external and put it on the internal. And I had no clue this would all fit together, and it was preparing the soil for what I do today. And
I love that. I was reading your book, and you were talking about how dancing as a young child, how that really prepared you for what you do now to kind of feel that energy and that movement and be able to tap into this additional field that exists around each individual. You were talking about the Russians that were talking about it as kind of like an information field.
Yes.
So that was really fascinating to me to see. So how did you when did you first realize that you had the ability to tap into this field and to kind of feel that movement of energy?
I really noticed it very, very young. I would not have called it the same, I wouldn't have described it with the same language that I do today, but when I learned to become a dancer, I became very, very aware that my energy extended way beyond my physical body. And especially if you're in front of an audience, I became very aware, as young as 12 years old, that my energy in silence, without saying a thing, I was affecting people all around me. Plus, even just performing on stage with other dancers, I developed that sense of feeling into the space and sensing with senses beyond just my eyesight, and knowing where people were behind me and extending that peripheral vision. Like, it really, everything I learned in ballet school. I wasn't joking. But it was many years later, in about 1987, during a meditation and I was alone at the time meditating, but I had an unexpected experience where I really felt this force of life force energy flowing through my hands in a way that I had not noticed before. And it was isolated to my hands at the moment that this occurred, and it was very strong. And again, my intuition, somehow I knew that this was to be used for the purpose of health and healing both myself and others. And that is when I started to pay closer attention to energy in a way that I had not before.
And I'm curious, how did you, did it just happen by itself, or was it something that you did that caused this to take place? I mean, was this something that you'd be able to duplicate at a later time?
Yes, I can duplicate it, and I can help other people find it now that I'm aware of what it is. And it's a retraining of your awareness in a way that we're not taught. And my whole life had been preparing the soil for that. That's what I mean by that, is that I got good at sitting still and getting quiet and not talking and not distracting myself. And when you do that, you will become aware of subtle energy and information that's always there, but we're not paying attention to it because we're taught to stay in our head, to think, to focus on a device, or a television or whatever it is, something external. And so in that moment that it happened, it seemed like it was happening to me and that it was sudden, and it was very unexpected. It was not something I was sitting there hoping to happen. I didn't really realize it would ever happen. But from that moment on, I started to connect the dots and became very, very interested in this whole topic and read everything and did everything I could to get my hands on a greater understanding of what was happening. And I'm still doing that. I think the greatest scientists in the world are still doing that as we try to explain a different level of understanding, a different level of comprehension than we're used to.
Because we're so used to living in this four-dimensional world, where we're we only believe what we see, what we hear, what we touch, what we taste. But this is then being able to tap into something that exists all around us, but it's just a step outside of, I wouldn't say outside, because it is still part of who we are, but it is still beyond that. I mean, it's more than just that. Absolutely.
And what's so interesting to me and curious is that, we look outside and we see space, empty space, and we know the universe is made up of, I think it's 99% empty space, but it's not empty. It's filled with intelligence, but we really aren't trained, we aren't taught this, and so we dismiss it as nothing and no value. And this is the benefit of some of the practices I've done over the years, is that in sitting still and in getting quiet, you do become aware that there is a lot going on. There's a lot of information that we can tap into, and it's just not the quote-unquote normal, common way yet. But it's becoming, it is our future, and it's more and more people are showing interest in this than I've ever seen before.
Well, I think people are starting to recognize the limitations of what is currently known, and they are then looking, they're needing to push the boundaries more in order to be able to find solutions that are currently not being solved.
That's a great way of putting it. That's exactly it. Yeah, and in every area of life, I mean, we're hitting a wall of limitation with our stress levels, with our health, with the way we handle, as you well know, all of our health systems are breaking down, and people are seeking new answers. And with the information age being what it is, we're overwhelmed and overloaded. People's stress levels are off the charts.
Absolutely.
So we can't process all this, the typical kind of technological information, unless we learn to expand our consciousness in some way to handle this new level.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to HealthMade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here today with DEBORA WAYNE. We'll be right back. Welcome back to HealthMade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I am here with amazing energy healer DEBORA WAYNE. Talking a little bit about how people are now feeling like they need to expand and finding a solution to some of the issues that they're dealing with, and all the stressors that we're exposed to that really kind of put us in a place of dis-ease. And you have then found ways to help people to find solutions to seemingly, physical, like, for instance, pain, seems like such a physical condition, and it seems to be that you would need to solve it with a physical tool, like a medication or surgery or, something like that. So how can you solve that in a different way, in a non-physical way?
I love this question. So, we have a misunderstanding. We, as you said, yes, the physical body expresses physical pain. We can feel it. We can see it sometimes. But we have a misunderstanding of the body in general. And the physical body is actually not physical. If you were to really see it under a very high-powered microscope, we would see that the body is a mass of vibrating particles of energy and light. It's vibrational information, and it's not really solid. And I always like to use the example of when you look at an image on a computer and you blow it up larger, you see all the little pixels, all the little circle-colored dots. That's what your body would look like. So this idea that the body is physical and everything is solid and can't change, it's just simply not true. And so when we look at physical pain, to just approach it from a physical understanding will have massive limitations, because everything is energy, and it actually starts on a more subtle level, and the physical body is the last place anything shows up. So the way I help people is to go to a deeper understanding of what's hidden from view before it even shows up in the body. And that has to do with three things, exactly. It has to do with our thinking mind, our emotions, and our energy field, that field that surrounds the body. Those three exact areas, thoughts, emotions, and the energy field, are comprised of subtle energy, subtle energetic information. And when we clear the damaging disturbances that are in the thinking mind, the emotional body, and the energy field, it must show up as a change in the physical body.
That's amazing.
It's exciting. It really is so exciting, because it means that any pain, any symptom, any dis-ease can change. Because we know from science that energy never dies, but it changes form all the time. So those symptoms are made of energy, and we can change that.
So I'm curious, because you have then an individual, and they go to like an orthopedic doctor, and he x-rays the knee, and yes, there's loss of cartilage, and this is why you're in pain, and you need to have your knee operated upon, or we'll shoot you with some cortisone first and see if that is better. So working then on this energetic field, working on the mind and the emotion, can that really show a change in that knee that visibly has loss of cartilage?
Absolutely, 100%. Yes, I've worked with, I can't tell you how many thousands of people with hip and back and neck and shoulder and knee and jaw and wrist and elbow and you name it, pain that was showing up on a medical test. that after working with me, go back and the tests show nothing is there.
That's incredible.
I know, it's absolutely, and the same thing with all types. I've worked with people with cancerous tumors all throughout their body. And they go back, and the tumors have either reduced tremendously or they're gone. And the doctors have no explanation, and they have done no other type of treatments or anything. They've only worked with me. So we know that's the only possibility. Just so many things I could tell you. Thyroid issues where my clients are told, oh, you'll have markers for Hashimoto's, for example, for the rest of your life. And then they go back, there are no markers. Gone. So again, it's proof that the physical body, it can and it does change. And when it changes, these conditions that we think are permanent, they cease to exist. Because all pain, all symptoms, even the knee with the torn cartilage, it's a vibrational pattern. That's all it is. And vibrational patterns can change. Yeah. And if you, a visual image of that, it's like if you have static on the TV and you tune it in so that it's a clear picture, the static is gone. Well, that's what happens in the body. There's static. There's a disturbance. And we tune it in until it's literally gone.
Yeah, and I would assume, if you've only seen this like once or twice, and it becomes like an anomaly. But
right.
if it is, you've helped thousands and thousands of people, and with these type of issues, where it has then become a physical proof where the only intervention is what you have done.
Absolutely, and again, that's in the first few years that I started practicing this, I just worked on as many people as I could, kind of in a testing, researching phase, because I had those same thoughts. I was like, well, is this a fluke? Is this going to be consistent? Is this, what's happening here? But after, the first, I don't know how many hundreds of people, and visible, physical, emotional changes occur, and they can't all be making it up. And so. No. I began to start to trust more, and then I started to also discover there's scientific research that talks about this field. There's a lot of physicists out there. There's really quite a lot of research that discusses how everything changes. All health and all disease start in the field first and then show up in the body, and they're able to photograph this. There's very sophisticated equipment that comes out of Russia that can measure the changes of energy and light, both emotionally and physically, that show up. And I've been in the research lab a few times now to see the measurable results from doing this type of work, and it's just so exciting. And then to watch someone's spine literally change. I had a 92-year-old woman once in my office years ago who literally grew 2 inches because her entire spine straightened out, and this is with no touching, no chiropractic adjustments here. She had to raise the height of her walker as she left, and the pain was gone, the spine is straight. This is absolutely real.
That's incredible. And this, so you had this kind of moment where you're feeling that energy in your hands, and then obviously that you've come a long way from then. How did you know how to use this energy and how to impact people and to help them in their healing journey?
This again goes back to my commitment to meditation practice, which I've done since I was 15 years old. So for a long time, this was a daily practice. And what I realized it was doing was refining my intuition and my sensitivity and to subtle energy. And so after I had that experience, I still wasn't ready to come out of the closet. I was still insecure about it and wondering, is this consistent, et cetera. So I spent a lot of time flying under the radar. But in 2006, I had become also at that time, in 2001, I became a yoga teacher, and I started offering healing sessions to the people in the yoga community. And because in yoga, the yogis have been talking about these subtle energy bodies for thousands of years. This isn't new to that world. And I knew that they were describing the same thing. So as I began to work on people and offer sessions, I gained, first of all, evidence, I gained confidence, and I gained competence. And I just kept working and working on people. And as, it's like anything else, when you practice a skill, you improve. And I became more comfortable. My body was able to handle the changes that were going on, and I mentally I kept very good notes also. So I started to see patterns. I started to realize I was being shown through doing, through actually facilitating these sessions, lots of things were becoming clear. And then the science started to come out more, and I recognized as I read the science, my God, they're describing exactly what I'm doing. So the puzzle started to come together for me, really.
So it's almost like Newton seeing the apple fall and then try to figure out the science behind it after.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. Yes.
So what are some of the, as you work on people, what are some of the main, actually, let's take a little quick break because there's going to be a big question.
Okay, all right.
and I don't want to stop right in the middle of the question. We'll just take a quick break. I'm here with DEBORA WAYNE. Welcome back to HealthMade Radio. This is Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here today with DEBORA WAYNE. So what I'm curious about, we have all these people dealing with pain and pain medication. There are more people dying from pain medication than any other medication, and it's the biggest reason for loss of productivity and work, and people are can't work due to the amount of pain that they're dealing with. So obviously this is a huge thing to tackle. What have you seen some of the most common reason for this pain to occur and its various shapes and various locations?
I've actually discovered 13 main reasons that are hidden from view typically that underlie pain, that are at the root. And they may surprise you.
I'm sure I will be surprised.
So the first, number one reason that practically guarantees the pain is going to not only continue to be stuck, but it will actually get worse, is the focus on trying to get rid of the symptom. It puts energy into the very thing you're trying to get rid of, number one. Number two, it's looking in the wrong place. It's just constantly that looking at the physical symptom. The symptom is never the root cause. So the more we hate it, try to stop it, try to get rid of it, deny it, suppress it, medicate it, whatever, all it does is it gets louder and louder and worse, because the second reason that's hidden from view that's the cause of this pain is that there's unresolved either mental or emotional stress. And what I mean more specifically is that we have damaging thoughts and damaging emotions that start the pain going and become physical. And then the body is expressing that to us, trying to get our attention to deal with the belief systems and the emotions that are really causing internal stress and strain.
And I would assume as an individual, we're suppressing something for a reason, and the reason is that we don't want to deal with it. So
we don't want to deal with it, and there's a part of us that thinks that by suppressing it, it's going to keep us safe from danger. Usually these things start way back in early childhood. They're either modeled for us, or we compensate because there's some kind of real or imagined danger in our environment as a young child. And as I'm sure you know, the brain is wired to keep us alive, but not to keep us happy. So, for example, if there's abuse or violence or addiction in the family, and it's literally unpredictable. It's dangerous. We don't know where our next meal is coming from, something like that. The brain will figure out a way to help you survive and compensate. You may learn to become a people pleaser in order to stay out of harm's way and not get hit, for example. I have seen many thousands of people who are in physical pain, but the root of it was they were trying to please everyone. They were overgiving. They were saying yes when they meant no. They were trying to be so nice. And when you unravel that ball of string, really, they were trying to stay out of danger that happened sometimes 50, 60 years ago, but they're still living that pattern out as an adult.
And how are you able to pinpoint what event it is? Because obviously there's so much that happens in an individual's life. So how are you able to kind of say that, this is it?
Two things. One, you don't always have to pinpoint the exact incident, and there's usually more than one incident. It's not usually one exact incident. But that's what I do in my programs. I have a system, literally, where I help people discover the message the story that their body is trying to tell them. And I help people discover that by questions I ask and exercises I take them through. And the answers are inside each and every one of us. They really are in there. But you have to be asked the right questions, and you have to be in a safe environment for this information to come up. Now, when I facilitate my Biofield Healing Immersion method, this is the real superpower, because it brings these unconscious awarenesses that have been stuffed and suppressed up to the surface, oftentimes very, very rapidly, and images will flash before people's minds, or they'll just absolutely know internally without me saying a word. They'll know what's really going on. They'll become aware of it. Or, even better, many people just release it, and they don't even need to figure out what the root incidents were. They just release the pattern.
So you don't even need to have conscious awareness of what it is that caused the pain. The energy of it can still just kind of move away. Exactly.
That's the beautiful magic wand effect. I wish everyone got that. A lot of people do, but not everyone. And that's the beauty of using the Biofield Healing method, is that there's a strong chance that will happen, and it can be instantaneous. Even if you've carried a pattern of pain for 30 years, it can be gone in less than an hour. It's remarkable. Believe me, I understand how this all sounds too good to be true, but it's absolutely true. And if someone doesn't get the quote-unquote magic wand effect from just the Biofield healing work, that's why I've created the other systems, part of the system, which is where I go in through the doorway of their thinking and the doorway of the emotions, and I help people find what the thoughts and the emotions are trying to do for them. And it's just a process I take people through, and then I teach them how to do that on their own so that they never have to be afraid of pain again, they never have to get stuck in it again, and they have the tools to face life and not hide out.
So, and essence is then working on these three components that then create our physical reality. Our thinking, our emotions, and also this field that we're surrounded by.
Exactly.
So it's just a tool that you acquired, where you can very methodically able to work through this seemingly non-concrete space. And then just being able to use your intuition to feel what's going on. Am I correct with that?
For the most part, yeah. So what was happening was I had a lot of my clients in the early years I would only do the Biofield Healing Immersion, and they would have incredible healing. But there was a small percentage that would call me sometimes a year later and say, "Deborah, the pain is back." And I just couldn't live with that. So I would bring them in, I would sit them down, and I would start to quiz them and dig a little deeper. And in every case, I discovered it was something to do with a false belief some kind of idea that they had in their mind or emotions that they had suppressed. And once I brought that to light and helped them release it, the pain was gone, and they started to see the correlation as well between the thoughts, emotions, and the pain symptoms. So I over time in practice, I put together the system. It just came from working with my clients. Now, the biofield healing, the energy field work, it's not so much intuitive. I actually use my hands like you would see an MRI scan the body. I use my hands as the scanner, and I can feel where there are vibrational disturbances in the energy field. I've just become super sensitive in that way over my lifetime. And here again, I know this is going to sound really out of the box for some people, but I can do this whether I'm in person or at a distance. It makes no difference.
And how does that work? I mean, how can you do it from, when you're not even close to an individual?
So, like this morning, I had a little boy, a client who's in Paris, France, and I'm in San Diego. And we had an appointment time. I literally just act as if that child is in front of me, and I start scanning his field using my hands. And I can tell you exactly where in his body there were issues and disturbances, and and I knew nothing about what was going on other than I knew the mother, and the mother had reached out to me, but I didn't have time, and because of the time difference, I didn't even know the situation. And I began working on the child and then spoke with the mother afterwards, and absolutely every area where I could feel something going on was validated by what she told me afterwards.
And I know that you, like we were talking about, that you noticed that you could do these things and noticed how energy is impacting different individuals, and then looking for the scientific reasoning behind it. Mm-hmm. How would you scientifically explain that you're able to work on somebody in another part of the world? Through
the interrelationship of all that is. There is a non-local field of correlation, which means that everything is interconnected, but it's non-local. It's outside the realm of time and space, and as we know it. So it doesn't require you being in my presence, because we live in a vibrational universe, not a physical universe. It's similar to when I said the body is not physical. We think our world is physical. It's actually vibrational, and we are all literally interconnected, just like the ocean. It's made up of 1 million drops of water, but it looks like one big body of water. That's how we are. And you can literally learn to train your senses to recognize this. People have this type of awareness from meditation and other, yoga and things, but I've just spent my whole life becoming so aware of how everything is energy and vibration and interconnected that to me it's just my natural state now. So it's as easy as washing my hands.
So it's kind of like the explanation of, through the holographic universe,
Correct.
So to say, where the piece of information exists within each individual, the information cell. About the whole exists within every cell, every
That's exactly
particle,
right.
etc.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, and there's something known as the quantum entanglement theory. There are several different explanations. They use different language, but basically they're all saying the same thing. And even from a religious context, we've heard we are all one.
Yeah, that God exists within each one of us.
Exactly.
And so then meaning that it's completely non-local.
Exactly.
And is this something, you've been doing this for a long period of time, and is this something that other people can learn to do as well?
Yes, it is. I have a practitioner training program for those interested in this type of healing. Some people take it, they just want to help their own children or their family members. Other people are medical professionals, or they want to, or they've practiced other types of, alternative holistic healing modalities, or they're massage therapists. Lots of people come for different, with different backgrounds. But I can teach anyone to do this. And in fact, what's really exciting is that usually by the 5th or 6th week of my training program, the participants are getting results from the people they are working on. That's how quickly this can happen. Just got an email today. I have a new practitioner program. We just started it about 6-7 weeks ago. And I got an email today from one of the students saying she worked on someone who's had massive, horrible migraine headaches for years. And after the first session with my student, completely gone. The first time in years.
That's incredible. So it just shows that these are very duplicatable principles, and it's universal, and it's not just specific to one individual, being you. Yeah, that's really, really exciting.
It's so exciting. It really is, and I've yet to have anyone go through my practitioner program who did not get results. Everyone's capable of this. So to me, think about it. What if we had this in our toolkit? Every family had someone in the family that was able to facilitate this. I've had so many parents who went through the program, and it saved them trips to the ER for their kids, because kids are always hurting themselves and getting injured or whatever. I just envision the world where this is the first thing we reach for, not the last.
Absolutely, and that is my strongest belief, is to first go for the least damaging medicine rather than the one that is the most. And so if you deal with pain, obviously, if you're going to do surgery, that would be the most damaging. Because once you've... It's
just so frustrating, isn't it? Because you see people... I've worked with people who have had 6 surgeries, and the pain is still there. They've had organs removed, and the symptoms are still there. And now they have a slew of other symptoms and infections and this and that. It's just heartbreaking to see what people are willing to do to themselves when this is an option.
Yeah, because they think I have pain in my gallbladder, so I should just remove the gallbladder, instead of recognizing that the pain is there for a reason, and just because you remove the expression of the pain, which is a gallbladder, doesn't mean that the reason behind it disappeared all of a sudden. It will still be there.
Exactly it. You're hitting the nail on the head. My own mother, she had her gallbladder removed, and she came out of that surgery with the same symptoms she went in with. And until she finally opened up and allowed me to help her, she did not get in touch with the emotions that were at the root of all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick break. It's very exciting information. I'm here with DEBORA WAYNE. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. You're listening to HealthMade Radio. Welcome back to HealthMade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I am here with energy healer DEBORA WAYNE. DEBORA, so what are there any kind of limitations as to what can be done with the Biofield healing?
Not that I'm aware of yet. I've seen such a wide range of change that's possible, of healing that's possible with it. Everything from physical pain symptoms of all types to things like depression, anxiety, severe panic attacks, all types of emotional pain. I've worked with people who just had complete massive insomnia, hadn't slept in years, people worrying themselves sick all night long, and turned them into a quiet, calm mind where they just couldn't even believe how quiet it was up in their mind and able to sleep through the night. I've just seen people with very, very late-stage disease where, in fact, quite a few with cancer that was so late stage, the doctor said, we're not even offering you chemo or radiation. You're too far gone. And I've seen them recover, completely recover.
That's incredible. So, can you give me a couple of examples that really kind of stick out in your mind, just so people can understand the power of working with the tools that you use?
Absolutely, love to. So one that comes to mind was a woman who she had, for some unknown reason, began vomiting nonstop, and she had terrible stomach pain no matter what she ate or didn't eat. And it got so severe that she couldn't leave the house. She had to stop traveling. She had to stop exercising. Like, she had to be right there in the house close to the restroom. And this went on for 9 months, and there was nothing showing up on a medical test. She had every test in the sun, under the sun. Nothing showed up as wrong. They, of course, put her on all the elimination diets, and the poor woman was like living on air and broccoli, and she was still having the symptoms. So I don't remember how she found me, but she did, and I sat down with her, and within an hour, we found that the emotions that were inside of her that she had absolutely no idea about were causing these symptoms. She began to cry, to tell me about it. I helped her get to the root of these emotions. She got them out. She never had an episode of vomiting or stomach pain again. She became a raving fan. She went back to traveling and working and going to the gym. And, I mean, her life, she got her life back. This was a woman in her 50s who really, if she had gone down the conventional trail, she'd be right now probably living on 50 meds and housebound for the rest of her life.
Absolutely. That's amazing. That's amazing. And you're talking to some people that were very late stage cancer. I mean, obviously cancer, when you see the tumor, it again looks very physical. Right. And the only way to get rid of the tumors and to either cut it out or bombard it with radiation or chemo. So you're telling me that there are other ways.
So actually this woman we took into a science lab, and we videotaped and we measured and we strapped her up to equipment that came out of Japan, which measures the flow of energy and shows you the different organs that are responding to when I work on her. And this woman it was her second bout with breast cancer, and she had tumors. I think it just was spreading everywhere, and she had a lot of tumors, and they told her that she was too far gone, and they weren't going to offer her chemo or radiation. And again, somehow she found me, and I actually worked on her less than I did most people. And in the second session, now remember, I did not speak to her before, during, or after the session. We wanted to keep every possible bias out of this. So the only people that even knew what was going on were the lab technicians and the head of the research lab. And I would just literally, they'd measure her 20 minutes before I went into the lab. Then I would go in the lab. The graph showed an immediate change from the moment I entered the lab. And then I would leave, and the graphs would change again. And they put all this data up on, it took months to evaluate. But long story short, in the second session of only 3 sessions, she burst out crying. And I found out later that when the session ended, she spoke to the head of the research lab and said, I now know exactly how I got this cancer, where it's from. I made peace with it, and I'm never going to have it again. I'm totally well. And this was a 72-year-old woman. And lo and behold, after the third session, she had an MRI scheduled the very next day, which I felt was too soon, because sometimes the body will change. It will take a while longer for the body to actually show all the physical changes. But she didn't want to. It took too long to get these appointments scheduled, so she went anyway. And this was 3 weeks later. I worked on her 1 time per week for 3 weeks. And after the day after the third session, she goes in for the MRI. It showed an 82% reduction in all tumors. And within 1 month later, the doctor announced full remission. She went back to a fully normal life. The only method that she did was work with me. She wasn't even eating. She was drinking some water and a little bit of Ensure or whatever that is that, they recommend. But that's all she did. And she had complete and total healing.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I'm curious, you said that you had no interaction with her. Did you even know what she was dealing with?
I didn't know anything until afterwards. That's correct. I don't have to know. I have to feel.
Yeah. That's incredible.
And I'll share another one because this has become so common right now. This fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome.
Yeah, that's huge.
Oh, my good God. So everyone's thrown in this sack of fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, and they have a multitude of symptoms. They're typically in pain from head to toe and living on medications and pain patches and anti-inflammatory diets and on, and they can't work, and they're on the couch all day. So one gentleman, he had to stop working. His wife went back to work. He had to stay home with his kids, and he couldn't even do a load of laundry without needing a 2-hour nap. That's how bad it was. And I worked with him at a distance, and within the first month, his energy came back online so strongly that he was able to play ball every night with his boys in the driveway. He was able to go back and start yoga. He started to get his energy back completely. He was able to... He discovered, by the way, that he hated the line of work he had been in for 30 years and that he had forced himself because he was told by his family it was the only thing he would ever be good at. Mm. You see, this is how damaging the belief systems can be. And he was so unhappy there that his body finally shut down because he couldn't give himself permission to leave a career he hated. He got very clear on what he really wanted to do. I helped him manifest a new dream and reinvent his life. And today that gentleman is an entrepreneur with a waiting list of a month. He's happy as a clam, earning more money than he ever has, and has his wife and family back, and they're a happy family.
So apparently he was able to do something else than
Correct.
What he hated. Yeah.
Absolutely. But see, he never even gave himself the chance because he bought into a belief system out of fear and limitation and out of fear of not being able to provide and support himself. And there's many people that do this. I work with them all the time that have this idea, so they don't even try. And eventually they get sick and in pain because they're so miserable and their body's telling the story of it.
Yeah. Well, Deborah, I know there's so much more we can talk about this, and I really urge listeners to go and we'll have a link at healthmade.co how to find Deborah Wayne and how she can help you getting out of pain and getting back your life. Thank you so much, Deborah, for coming on to the show today.
Thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Likewise. That is all for today. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt with HealthMade Radio. Remember to connect with us at healthmade.co. Health is what you make it.